was 17 when this happened. My parents had gone out for the night to visit some friends across town, and I had the house completely to myself. At first, it was honestly pretty great. I ordered a pizza, turned on the TV in the living room, and planned to spend the entire night playing video games and watching movies. It was one of those quiet weeknights where nothing exciting ever happens. Everything felt normal. Around 10 p.m., while I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone, I heard a noise upstairs, a soft thud. It was faint, but loud enough to catch my attention. I muted the TV and listened. For a few seconds, there was nothing. The house went completely quiet again. I figured it was probably just the house settling. Old houses make weird noises all the time, especially at night when everything is quiet. So I shrugged it off and turned the volume back up. About 20 minutes later, I heard another sound. This one was different. It sounded like a door slowly closing upstairs, the kind of slow creak you hear when someone gently pushes a door shut. That immediately made me pause the TV again. My bedroom was upstairs, so was my parents' room, the bathroom, and the guest room. I stood up and stared toward the staircase. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded louder than I expected in the quiet house. No answer. The silence that followed made the house suddenly feel a lot bigger and a lot darker. I grabbed my phone and slowly walked toward the stairs. Each step creaked under my feet as I climbed up. When I reached the top, the hallway was completely dark. All the doors were closed. I reached over and flipped on the hallway light. The sudden brightness made everything look normal again. Nothing seemed out of place. Still, I decided to check the rooms just to make sure. I opened my bedroom door first. Everything looked exactly how I left it. Bed unmade, clothes on the chair, nothing disturbed. Next was my parents' room, also normal. The bed was neatly made, the lights were off, and everything looked exactly the same as when they had left earlier that evening. I stood in the hallway for a moment, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No movement. I started to feel a little stupid for worrying. I turned to head back toward the stairs when I heard something behind me. A quiet creak. I turned around immediately. The bathroom door at the end of the hallway was slightly open, and I was almost certain it had been closed before. The light inside the bathroom was off. I slowly walked toward it. My heart was starting to beat faster now. When I reached the door, I pushed it open. The bathroom looked empty. Sink, mirror, toilet, everything exactly where it should be. I stood there for a moment, letting out a slow breath. Then I noticed the shower curtain. It was completely closed, and suddenly I realized something. I hadn't checked behind it. My heart started pounding. I slowly reached out and grabbed the edge of the curtain. For a moment, I just stood there, trying to convince myself I was being paranoid. Then, I pulled it back quickly. The bathtub was empty. No one there. I actually laughed a little from relief. I stepped back into the hallway and turned off the bathroom light. I was halfway down the hallway when I heard a loud noise downstairs. A bang, like the front door slamming. My heart dropped instantly. I ran down the stairs as fast as I could. When I reached the bottom, I froze. The front door was wide open. Cold night air was blowing into the house, making the hallway feel suddenly freezing. I walked slowly toward the door. The deadbolt was unlocked, and I knew for a fact I had locked it earlier. I always locked it when I was home alone. I stepped outside and looked around the front yard and the street. Everything was quiet. No one walking, no cars driving by, just empty darkness. I closed and locked the door immediately and checked every window in the house. They were all locked. When my parents got home later that night, we called the police. 2 officers came by and searched the entire house. Closets, basement, garage, every room. They didn't find anyone. Before leaving, one of the officers told us something that made my stomach turn. There had been several break-ins in our neighborhood recently, but they weren't normal break-ins. In a few cases, The intruder had entered houses early in the evening, while people were still awake. They would hide somewhere inside the house and wait until the homeowners went to sleep. Then they would come out. If I hadn't heard those noises upstairs, if I had just stayed downstairs watching TV and eventually gone to bed, I might have fallen asleep that night without ever realizing someone had been inside the house with me. And the scariest part is, we never found out how they got in. I was driving home late one night after visiting a friend a few towns over. It was already past midnight, and the roads were mostly empty. Just long stretches of dark highway surrounded by trees and the occasional gas station every few miles. I had about an hour left before I'd be home. About 20 minutes into the drive, I saw someone standing on the side of the road. At first, I almost didn't notice him. He was just standing there near the shoulder, with a backpack at his feet and his thumb out. A hitchhiker. Normally, I would have kept driving. Everyone knows you're not supposed to pick up strangers on empty highways at night. But it was freezing outside, and he looked exhausted. He wasn't waving or stepping into the road like some hitchhikers do. He was just standing there quietly. For some reason, I slowed down. Then, I stopped. He walked up to the passenger side and leaned down slightly. "Thanks," he said through the window. "I've been walking for hours." He looked normal enough, maybe mid-30s, messy hair, a backpack slung over one shoulder. I unlocked the door. He climbed in and set the backpack on his lap. "Anywhere down the highway is fine," he said. I nodded and pulled back onto the road. At first, everything seemed normal. He just sat there quietly, looking out the windshield. I tried making small talk. "Where you headed?" "Just down the road," he replied. "Been hiking?" He shrugged. "Something like that." The conversation died pretty quickly after that. The silence in the car started to feel uncomfortable. After a few minutes, I glanced over at him. That's when I noticed something strange. He was smiling. Not a friendly smile. More like a tight grin, like he was holding back laughter. I figured maybe he was just nervous, so I ignored it. But every time I looked over, he was still smiling, just staring straight ahead. About 10 minutes later, he suddenly asked, "Do you live around here?" Something about the way he said it made me hesitate. I decided to lie. "Nah," I said. "Just passing through." He nodded slowly. Then he asked another question. "Does anyone know you're on this road tonight?" That question made my stomach drop. I forced a small laugh. "My girlfriend's expecting me back soon." He didn't respond, just kept staring forward, still smiling. At that point, I started thinking about the next place I could stop. Luckily, there was a gas station a couple miles ahead. I pulled into the parking lot and parked near the entrance. "I'm gonna run in and grab a drink," I said. "You want anything?" He slowly turned his head toward me. "No," he said quietly. "I'll wait here." I got out of the car and walked inside. Instead of going straight to the drinks, I stood near the front of the store and looked out the window at my car. He was still sitting there, not moving, just staring forward. Then something happened that made my heart start racing. He leaned forward, opened my glove compartment, and started looking through it. That was enough for me. I walked up to the cashier and quietly explained what was happening. I asked if they could call the police. The cashier immediately picked up the phone. When I turned back toward the window, the passenger door of my car was open, and the hitchhiker was gone. He wasn't walking down the road. He wasn't anywhere in the parking lot. It was like he had just disappeared. The police showed up about 10 minutes later and searched the area, but they didn't find anyone. Eventually, they told me it was safe to leave. Before I drove away, I checked my glove compartment. Everything was still there. My registration, some napkins, a flashlight. Nothing looked like it had been taken. But as I started to close it, I noticed something that definitely wasn't mine. A small pocket knife. It was sitting right in the middle of the compartment, and it was open. A few years ago, my friend Tyler and I decided to hike part of the Appalachian Mountains during our summer break. Neither of us were hardcore hikers, but we'd camped enough times before to feel comfortable spending a few nights out in the woods. The first day went smoothly. The trail was quiet, the weather was perfect, and after the first few hours, we barely saw anyone else. By evening, we found a small clearing just off the trail and decided it was a good place to set up camp. Everything felt normal at first. We built a small fire, cooked some instant noodles, and just sat there talking while the sun disappeared behind the trees. Once it got dark though, the forest started feeling different. At first, it was just small noises, branches snapping in the distance, leaves crunching somewhere in the woods. I didn't think much of it because forests are always full of sounds at night. But after a while, I noticed something strange. The noises weren't random. They were moving, slowly, like something was walking in a circle around our campsite. Tyler noticed it too. He stopped talking mid-sentence and just stared into the darkness. "Probably a deer," he said quietly. I nodded, even though it didn't sound like a deer. The footsteps would start, then suddenly stop whenever the fire crackled or we shined a flashlight toward the trees. Then they'd start again a few seconds later, always just outside the clearing. It went on like that for almost an hour. Neither of us wanted to say it out loud, but we both knew the same thought was creeping into our heads. It sounded like someone was out there. Around midnight, we heard something that made both of us freeze. A whistle. 2 short notes. Clear. Human. Tyler slowly turned his head toward me. "Did you hear that?" I nodded. Before either of us could say anything else, the whistle came again. But this time, it came from a different direction. Tyler grabbed his flashlight and aimed it straight into the woods. The beam cut through the trees, lighting up trunks, branches, and empty darkness. There was nothing there, but the feeling that someone was watching us suddenly became impossible to ignore. We turned off the flashlight and sat there listening. That's when we heard it. Footsteps again. But this time, there were multiple sets. Not just one person. At least 2, maybe more. They moved slowly through the forest, just beyond where the firelight reached. Every time one set of footsteps stopped, another would start somewhere else, like they were circling us. We didn't talk after that. We just sat there in silence, staring at the trees and listening. Every once in a while, we'd hear a branch snap or leaves crunch somewhere in the darkness. But whoever was out there never stepped into the clearing. They stayed hidden, watching. After what felt like hours, the sounds finally stopped. The woods went completely silent. Not even insects, just quiet. Tyler and I didn't sleep at all that night. The moment the sky started getting lighter, we packed everything up as fast as we could and started hiking back down the trail. Neither of us said much during the hike. We just wanted to get out of there. About half a mile from where we had camped, Tyler suddenly stopped walking. "Dude, look." He pointed at the dirt beside the trail. At first, I didn't see it. Then, I noticed the footprints. They weren't on the trail. They were just off to the side, running parallel to it. Bare footprints. Multiple sets of them. And they were heading in the same direction we had been hiking the day before. Whoever made them had been walking through the woods beside us, following us. We stood there for a minute, just staring at them. Then Tyler noticed something else. There weren't just 2 sets of footprints. There were 3. 3 different people had been walking through the forest next to us, keeping pace with us, the entire time. We finished the hike without stopping and drove home that same day. Neither of us ever went back to that section of the Appalachian Trail again. But sometimes, I still think about that whistle echoing through the mountains. Because whoever those people were, they never tried to approach us. They never spoke. They just stayed hidden in the trees, following us, watching us, waiting.